Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take the source material you need to know and, well, we try to extract a clear, actionable blueprint for life. Today, we're undertaking a deep dive into what is, I think you could argue, the ultimate charter for ethical community living. We're looking at a detailed exposition of the 49th chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Hujurat.
That's a really powerful way to frame it, and it's accurate. This surah is absolutely essential, and a lot of that comes down to when it was revealed.
Okay, so set the scene for us. Where are we?
We're in Medina, and it's around the 9th year of the Hijrah. This is a truly transformative period, known historically as the Year of Delegations, or Amal Wufud.
The Year of Delegations. I mean, that title alone implies a huge amount of change and probably a little bit of chaos, right?
A lot of chaos. It was a major inflection point. You have to imagine the early Islamic community was transitioning from this small, very tight-knit group into a rapidly expanding state. It was like a social melting pot just boiling over.
So delegations are arriving from all over.
From all over the Arabian Peninsula, tribes are pouring into Medina, pledging allegiance. And they brought with them genuine faith, yes, but they also brought all their baggage.
They're deeply ingrained customs.
Exactly. Deeply ingrained customs from the era before Islam, the Jahiliyyah norms. And these weren't just, simple habits. These were habits of thought, of speech, of conduct.
Things like tribal pride, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Tribal pride, arrogance, impatience, a certain disrespect for centralized authority. The community had just expanded so quickly that its social cohesion was genuinely at risk. They desperately needed, an ethical operating system upgrade.
And Surah Al-Hujurat, which is often called the Surah of Manners or Surah Al-Adab, is that upgrade. And it delivers it in just 18 verses. It's so concise.
It's a complete moral compass. And the structure of it is, frankly, genius. The structure itself is the message.
How so?
It starts with the most fundamental relationship. You, the believer, and authority. Then it spirals outward. It defines community integrity. It lays out conflict resolution procedures. Then it zooms right back in to purify the little micro-vices that destroy friendships. And then it zooms all the way out to establish this incredible global vision for all of humanity.
And it doesn't stop there?
No. Finally, it turns completely inward to define the very essence of what true faith even is.
Okay, let's unpack this blueprint. Our mission today is to follow that perfect progression, from reverence for authority to community integrity to conflict resolution, then purifying the inner self and finally getting to the heart of what faith really means. We want to extract the timeless lessons that apply whether you're, building a new society in the desert or, frankly, running a global corporation today.
The principles are universal.
So we start with the source material does, section 1, the foundation of Adab, which is all about reverence for divine authority, covered in verses 1 through 5.
Right.
And the foundational principle is laid out immediately in verse 1. It's this core concept of non-precedence, the command. Do not put yourselves forward before Allah and his messenger.
This command, la taqaddumu, is, you could argue, the single most important legal and ethical principle in the entire surah.
That's a strong statement. Why?
Because it's about subordinating the human ego. It's about subordinating your will to the divine command. It means you just cannot prioritize your personal judgment or your inherited cultural norms or even your own emotional reaction over the clear, established rulings you find in the Quran and the Sunnah.
So practically speaking, it's about protocol. If the prophet is speaking or if there's clear guidance available, you wait. You just wait. You don't jump the gun.
You don't try to get ahead of the decision-making process.
Exactly.
And this is where the source material rightly identifies it as the very essence of servitude, or ubudiyya. Think about it. If you are truly a servant, you don't dictate the flow of work. You don't assume you know better than the master. You accept the chain of command. And in this context, it's the ultimate chain of command.
It's almost like a governance model for an organization.
It is. If you look at it in modern organizational terms, la taqaddumu is the ultimate governance model. It's designed to prevent institutional anarchy. Because if everyone feels entitled to precede the ultimate authority, the system it collapses.
And what's so fascinating here, and what the source really brings to life, is the anecdote behind this, the asbab al-nuzul, the reason for revelation. It shows this was a hard lesson even for the greatest leaders.
This wasn't aimed at some unruly mob.
Right. It wasn't for the newcomers.
Not at all. That's where the human drama is. The revelation happened because of an incident involving Abu Bakr al-Siddiq and Umar ibn al-Khattab.
Wow. The two top guys. the ones who would lead the whole community later on.
The top two, the most respected, passionate, and frankly intelligent men in the community. And when the delegation from the Banu Tamim tribe arrived, what were they doing? They were debating loudly in the Prophet's presence.
About what?
About who should be appointed as the leader for this new tribe. They were suggesting different candidates. Abu Bakr wanted one guy, Umar wanted another.
So their intention was good. They were trying to help, trying to get the best outcome for the community.
Their intent was pure, absolutely. But their method completely violated the respect, the adab, due to the presence of the ultimate authority.
You were getting ahead of him.
Precisely. They were acting on their passion, on their political zeal. And they were essentially trying to force the Prophet's hand, or at least influence him very publicly, before he'd had a chance to receive guidance on the matter.
And theirs came down immediately.
Immediately, making it crystal clear. This etiquette is universal. It extends even to the absolute highest echelons of leadership. You subordinate your opinion, even if you are 100% sure it is the correct one, to the proper channel of decision-making.
Okay, so once that baseline of subordination is set in verse 1, the next couple of verses 2 and 3 get even more specific. They deal with the outward sign of that respect, the etiquette of presence.
Right.
Specifically, the rule against raising your voice above the Prophet's voice, or even just speaking loudly to him like you would to anyone else.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the consequence attached to this, what seems like a minor social mistake, is cataclysmic.
It's not just a suggestion.
Not at all. The warning is that failing to do this could make all your good deeds worthless while you perceive not. Wa antum la tashurun.
That is a massive spiritual wake-up call. We're talking about a subtle lapse in manners, in Adab, maybe just speaking a bit too loudly or showing some impatience, and that could spiritually bankrupt a person.
It could wipe out a lifetime of accumulated good deeds.
And you wouldn't even realize it's happening.
That's the key. It connects manners directly to the validity of your faith. The scholarly interpretation is that arrogance and disrespect are just. They're corrosive to sincerity. If you're disrespectful to the messenger, the very conduit of the revelation, it suggests a fundamental flaw in your submission to the message itself.
It's a spiritual blind spot.
The greatest danger of all. You might be meticulous in all your rituals, your prayers, your fasting. But if that foundation of humility and respect is missing, your entire spiritual house is built on sand, and you don't even know it's collapsing around you.
I have to ask, was this command only about the literal volume of someone's voice? Or was it also about the metaphorical volume, drowning out the guidance with your own loud opinions?
It's both, absolutely. But the literal sense was profound enough to cause real, genuine terror among the companions. The source shares the incredible story of Thabit ibn Qais.
Yes, let's get into Thabit's story, because it really brings the humanity back into what feels like a very strict rule.
It does. So Thabit was known for having a powerful, booming voice. It was just how he was built. He couldn't really speak quietly.
It was just his natural voice.
His natural voice. So when this verse was revealed, he went home, he locked himself away, and he just wept. He was convinced that since he had a loud voice, he must be one of those people whose deeds were worthless, that he was destined for the fire. And the Prophet noticed he was missing. He asked about him, learned what had happened, and sent a messenger with the best possible news. He said, "Tell him he is not among those people. He is an inhabitant of paradise."
So there's the mercy. The gravity of the rule is balanced by an understanding of human reality. It wasn't about your physical ability to be quiet.
No.
It was about the disposition of your heart.
It was about humility, exactly. And the reward mentioned in the verse is explicitly for those who lower their voices. It says their hearts are tested and proven for Taqwa, for God consciousness. It's a test. And furthermore, scholars universally extended this rule.
How so? It doesn't just apply to his lifetime.
Not at all. The reverence applies beyond his physical presence. It means you show respect when his hadith are recited, when his name is mentioned, or when you are in his sacred mosque in Medina. The reverence is perpetual because the message is perpetual.
Which brings us to verses 4 and 5. The surah addresses the way people approach leadership, and it criticizes those who lacked basic decorum. They're described as being devoid of understanding. La yaqilun. These were the people shouting for the Prophet from outside his private chambers. The Al-Hujurat, which gives the surah its name.
Right. This was the peak of rude entitlement. This was often practiced by the let's say, rougher Bedouins, like that same Banu Tamim tribe we mentioned earlier.
So they show up in Medina.
They show up in Medina, and they treat the prophet of God like he's their own tribal chief. They're yelling out his name, Muhammad, come out to us, demanding he come out immediately to deal with their issues. They just had no grasp of protocol, no respect for his personal space.
And he wasn't just a spiritual leader. He was a statesman, a judge, a husband, a father. He had all these roles.
All of them. And to demand his attention instantly, shouting outside his family's living quarters, it shows a complete disregard for all of those multifaceted responsibilities.
So what's the divine prescription for this?
It's simple, but it's profound. Patience. Suburb. The verse says that if they had just waited until he came out on his own, it would have been better for them, Khairan lahum.
Better in what way?
Better in every way. A better outcome for their request, a better reward from God. And this establishes a critical societal lesson for all time. You have to respect the privacy and time of your leaders, whether they're scholars, judges, or elected officials.
Use the proper channels.
Use appropriate, patient channels. This is how you foster a climate of mutual respect and ensure that the people serving the community aren't subjected to constant, arrogant intrusion.
So, to sum up this first section, it builds the absolute foundation. All good conduct has to start with deep deference, humility, and patience toward legitimate authority.
That's the bedrock. Without it, nothing else holds.
That groundwork is so crucial, because once that etiquette toward divine authority is secured, the surah immediately pivots outward. In Section 2, it focuses on upholding the integrity of the community itself. And this brings us to verse 6, a mandate for information verification. Tabiyan.
This is one of the most powerful and, frankly, terrifyingly relevant verses for our modern world, for our hyper-connected, rumor-driven digital age.
The command is so clear. O you who have believed, if there comes to you a disobedient one with information, investigate thoroughly.
The source is clearly labeled. It's a fasikin, untrustworthy, habitually disobedient person. And notice, the command isn't to dismiss the news outright.
No, it's to investigate it. Fada bayanu. Do your homework.
And then the verse gives you the explicit, chilling, causal chain of what happens if you don't. It's a sequence of events.
Which is?
If you act hastily on unverified reports, you will strike innocent people out of ignorance. And that will lead, inevitably, to profound and irreversible regret. Nadiman.
This isn't just a philosophical warning, then. It's about real-world consequences, about destroying lives based on bad data.
Exactly. And to understand the gravity of this, we have to look at the high-stakes anecdote behind it, the incident involving Al-Walid ibn Uqba and the Banu al-Mustalik tribe. This story makes the potential for disaster so tangible.
Okay, let's walk through it. It's high drama.
It is. Al-Walid ibn Uqba was sent to collect the zakat, the mandatory charity, from the Banu al-Mustalik tribe. Now, here's the key detail. Historically, Al-Walid had some residual hostility toward this tribe from pre-Islamic times. Bad blood.
Okay, so there's a pre-existing bias.
A huge one. And as he got near their territory, he started to get nervous, suspicious. He saw the tribe coming out to greet him, likely in celebration, but he interpreted it as a hostile mobilization. He panicked.
And he turned back before even meeting them.
And he turned around, and based entirely on old prejudice and his own fear, he rushed back to Medina and delivered a catastrophic, completely fabricated report.
What did he say?
He told the prophet that the Banu al-Mustalik had apostatized, left Islam, and refused to pay their zakat, which was an act of open rebellion.
Punishable by war.
Punishable by war. The consequences were instant. The prophet was, of course, righteously angered. He prepared to dispatch a military force to punish them severely. The entire community was on the verge of launching a massive and what they thought was a justified attack.
All based on a complete fabrication.
Born of one man's fear and his historical bias.
So how was this disaster averted? It sounds like they were moments away from bloodshed.
The disaster was averted only because the Banu al-Mustalik themselves, wondering where the tax collector was, sent their own delegation to Medina.
To find out what happened.
To find out what happened, to confirm their loyalty, and to pay their zakat. They arrived just in the nick of time. And this verse was revealed to freeze the prophet and the community in their tracks, commanding them to verify before irrevocable harm was done.
So this isn't just a moral suggestion, it's a cornerstone of law. It establishes the principle that unreliable testimony is inadmissible without independent corroboration.
Absolutely. This single verse, this epistemological framework, became the foundation for the entire meticulous scholarly science of hadith criticism, ilm al-jarh wal-ta'dil.
The science of authentication.
The science of authentication. The early scholars, driven by this divine command, had to develop these incredibly sophisticated tools to scrutinize the character, the memory, the reliability of every single person in the chain transmitting a prophetic tradition. We rely on that verification framework to this day. It is a divine mandate for information literacy.
And it speaks so directly to our modern culture of rumor, of clickbait, of instantly sharing things without thinking. We can become functional liars if we share every piece of information that crosses our feed. I think the source quoted that famous hadith.
It is enough for a person to be considered a liar if he tells everything he hears.
That's a powerful check.
It is. It tells you that your responsibility isn't just to be honest about where you heard something. You can't just say, oh, I just heard it. You have to be honest about its veracity. If you spread falsehoods, you share in the sin of the lie itself.
So in the digital age, this means rejecting that impulse to just hit forward on unverified news, especially if it's about a topic or a person we already have an emotional bias against.
Especially then. That's when the duty is highest.
That sounds incredibly difficult. I mean, we are just saturated with opinion and propaganda. You've convinced me of the what, but how do we practically apply this mandate for thorough investigation fata bayanu when we're constantly bombarded?
That's the tension the verse is designed to create. You aren't expected to become a private investigator for every single tweet you see, but you are expected to apply critical filters. The core mandate is to pause. Just pause before you react.
Right.
If the source is known to be untrustworthy, or if the message plays perfectly into your existing fears and prejudices, the burden of verification on you dramatically increases. It requires us to cultivate an internal friction against our own emotional reactions.
And the cost of not doing that is?
Irreversible regret. The exact same regret the community would have faced if they had attacked the loyal Banu al-Mustalik.
Okay, so then verses 7 and 8 come in and provide a kind of theological safety net. They remind believers that divine guidance, which was often manifest through the prophet, protected them from their own worst impulses.
Yes, it's a very humbling reminder. And know that among you is the messenger of Allah. If he were to obey you in much of the matter, you would surely be in difficulty. Anitam.
A direct reference back to that near-miss disaster.
Absolutely. If the prophet had followed the emotional, unverified demands to attack, the community would have suffered immense difficulty, immense injustice.
This balances human responsibility and divine grace so beautifully. Verse 6 says, you verify. That's your effort. But then verses 7 and 8 come in and say, by the way, recognize that your success in verifying and your general inclination toward the truth is actually a gift.
It is a reminder that Allah has endeared to you the faith, Iman, and made disbelief and sin hateful to you. The very capacity to choose justice and truth is a divine favor, a fall, and a bounty, a ni'mah.
Why is that theological balance so important?
It's crucial because it constantly cultivates humility. You have to maximize your effort in checking your sources, but at the same time, you have to be grateful that you were given the clarity to choose the right path. It prevents that arrogance, that self-righteousness of thinking your good choices are purely self-generated.
Right. So once the foundation of reverence is set and the guardrails of information integrity are in place, the surah moves in section 3 to internal social management. This is about fostering brotherhood and resolving conflict. Verses 9 and 10. This feels like the blueprint for keeping the community from tearing itself apart from the inside.
That's exactly what it is. This section provides a robust 4-step protocol for civil strife, a divine standard operating procedure for managing disputes when two parties of the believers fight each other.
And what's so significant is that it acknowledges that internal conflict is a reality. It's going to happen, even within a community of faith.
It's realistic. It doesn't imagine a perfect utopia. It gives you the tools for an imperfect reality.
So what is the first immediate step the community has to take?
The first obligation is collective and immediate intervention. You must seek reconciliation between them. Fali bainahuma. This is a collective duty, a fard kifaya.
Meaning the community can't just sit on the sidelines and watch.
No, you cannot be a passive bystander. If a fight breaks out, it is the religious and legal responsibility of the wider community to get involved and try to broker peace.
That's a challenging mandate. It removes the option of just saying, oh, it's not my business.
It makes it everyone's business. But then what happens if one party, which the verse describes as the aggressor, bashit, refuses to accept mediation and insists on continuing the fight?
That brings us to step 2. The community has to collectively use force against that aggressor.
Right.
This sounds like an endorsement of necessary targeted force to maintain order.
It is. It's a mechanism for communal self-defense and the enforcement of justice. But the objective is strictly restorative. That's step 3.
The force must stop the moment the aggressor reverts to Allah's command.
Tafiya ila amrillah. The moment they agree to stop fighting and abide by a just ruling. The goal is never annihilation. It's always the restoration of order.
And once the conflict is contained and the aggression stops, we have step 4, the crucial legal component.
Yes. You must establish an equitable and lasting peace. The verse says to achieve reconciliation with fairness and maintain justice, bil adl wa aksi.
So it's not enough to just have a ceasefire.
A mere ceasefire is not enough. The reconciliation has to address the root causes of the conflict fairly, so that no residual grievance is left to fester and spark another fight later on. It's a mandate for judicial transparency and equity.
I want to go back to a crucial theological point the source material mentions here. Throughout this entire process, even when they're fighting, both warring factions are still called al-mu'minin, the believers.
This is a fundamental theological principle of immense weight. It confirms that fighting a fellow Muslim, while a catastrophic sin, does not automatically place them outside the fold of Islam.
Which is a direct refutation of extremist ideologies.
A direct refutation of any extremist movement throughout history that has used conflict or major sin as a justification for excommunication or takfir. The Quran itself maintains that spiritual bond, even in the midst of violence.
And that spiritual bond is the rationale given right in the next verse 10. The believers are but brothers. Innama al-mu'minuna ikhwatun.
That statement is the spiritual DNA of the community. It's not a nice metaphor, it's an absolute spiritual reality. This relationship of brotherhood is the bedrock. And verse 9, that whole conflict resolution protocol, that's just the necessary surgical intervention to protect the bedrock when it gets sick.
There's that famous hadith that captures this so perfectly, where the Prophet described believers as being like a single body.
Mm-hmm.
If one part of the body feels pain, the whole body responds with sleeplessness and fever.
So a dispute between two people isn't a private matter. It's a sickness that afflicts the entire structure.
Exactly. And that's why the Prophet elevated the act of reconciliation so highly. He actually taught that reconciling between two people is superior to optional acts of devotion, more so than voluntary fasting or prayer.
Superior to voluntary fasting, voluntary prayer, and optional charity. Social cohesion is prioritized because it's the very infrastructure upon which all other good deeds rest. If your house is on fire, praying inside is kind of meaningless until you put the fire out.
Yeah, okay. So now we move into section 4. And this is a shift from the grand strategy of conflict management to the micro level. The daily vices that just eat away at that brotherhood from the inside. Verses 11 and 12 are all about purifying our social interactions.
This section addresses the psychological causes of social breakdown, and they're almost always rooted in internal arrogance, in kib. Verse 11 details this triad of verbal aggressions that destroy harmony.
The first one is mockery and scoffing, sukriya, and is forbidden for both men and women with this powerful, immediate reminder.
The ridiculed person may be better than them.
That reminder is the perfect antidote to arrogance, isn't it?
It is. Mockery comes from looking down on someone else based on superficial things. Their money, their clothes, their family name. And the verse instantly crushes that judgment by reminding us that the only true metric of worth is taqwa, God consciousness.
Which is hidden.
It's hidden in the heart, and it's known only to the Creator. You might be mocking someone who is spiritually light years ahead of you.
The second prohibition is defamation or taunting, lamps. And the phrasing here is so powerful. Do not taunt yourselves. Anfusakum.
This phrasing is beautiful. It reinforces that whole concept of the communal body we just talked about. When you insult or attack a fellow believer, you aren't attacking some external person. You're inflicting harm on the shared body. You are effectively taunting yourself. The crime is internalized as self-harm.
And the third prohibition is offensive nicknames, tanabuz bil aqwab. Basically, using derogatory labels or names that the person dislikes.
Right. The intent behind all three of these, mockery, taunting, labeling, is to degrade and marginalize another person. And that directly contravenes the entire principle of brotherhood.
And the warning is stark.
Very. Engaging in these acts is a mark of wickedness, fusuk. And if you fail to repent from them, you become a wrongdoer, a halim. These are not minor etiquette suggestions. They are fundamental ethical requirements.
So verse 11 is about the sins of the mouth that come from visible contempt. Verse 12 goes even deeper. It addresses the triad of social poisons, this internal cascade of sin that actually begins in the mind.
This is a masterclass in behavioral psychology. The cascade starts with a sin of thought, excessive suspicion. Catherine Min Alan. We're commanded to avoid making negative assumptions about others without any evidence, because some suspicion is a sin. It's about protecting the default state of goodwill in your heart.
And if you let that internal poison of suspicion fester, it naturally leads to the external action.
Spying. Tajassus. Now you're actively seeking out the hidden faults of others to try and confirm your initial baseless suspicion.
And that data you gather, which is often misinterpreted, feeds the ultimate sin of the tongue, the social catastrophe.
Backbiting. Giba. Saying something true about a person in their absence that they would dislike hearing.
And this is where the Quran uses that famous, almost unbearable, visceral metaphor to communicate how severe this is. Backbiting is compared to the abhorrent act of eating the flesh of his dead brother.
It forces revulsion. It's meant to make you feel sick.
Yeah.
It is a spiritual act of cannibalism. You would never physically eat the dead body of your own brother, so why would you consume his reputation when he's not there to defend himself?
And the prophet reinforced this, right? With these vivid, memorable warnings.
He did, like the vision during his ascension, the mirage where he saw people scratching their own faces and chests with copper nails. When he asked who they were, he was told they were the ones who ate the flesh of people. It's a physical manifestation of the self-inflicted damage caused by consuming others' reputations.
What I find so brilliant about the structure here is that the Quran targets the root cause first. It says avoid suspicion, and if you do that, you prevent the need to spy, and then you eliminate the fuel for backbiting.
It's preventative spiritual medicine.
The proactive spiritual hygiene.
That's a great way to put it. You have to police your internal thoughts, your assumptions. If your internal landscape is pure, if you just assume the best of your brother or sister, the external vices of spying and gossip simply cannot take root.
Now, we have to bring this ancient mandate directly into our modern world, because the correlation between these prohibitions and contemporary digital life is just.
Yeah.
It's astonishingly precise.
The medium has changed from the marketplace to the message board, but the human ethical failure is identical. It's just amplified by technology.
So let's look at the verbal aggressions first. Sukriya, mockery. Today, that is perfectly embodied by cyberbullying.
Oh, absolutely.
Online trolling, creating ridicule memes, things designed solely to humiliate someone in a very public, very persistent way.
And lambs, taunting and defamation, that translates directly to writing anonymous or pseudo-anonymous defamatory comments online, engaging in public shaming campaigns, or even the subtle but very pointed art of subtweeting.
Right, calling someone out to all your followers without technically naming them, but everyone knows exactly who you're targeting.
Exactly. And Tanabuz Bilakwab, offensive nicknames, that moves into things like doxing using technology to reveal someone's private information with malicious intent, or using hateful slurs and labels online to categorize and dehumanize entire groups of people.
And the triad of social poisons is maybe even more insidious online. Zan, sinful suspicion.
That's reading a vague post or a poorly worded email or seeing that someone left you unread and immediately projecting the most malicious possible intent onto them. It's instant confirmation bias.
Then tajassus, spying, transforms from just looking over a fence into something much more invasive.
It becomes hacking accounts, illegally checking private messages, or intensely stalking someone's entire social media history. Not out of curiosity, but looking for flaws, looking for leverage. It's technologically enabled snooping.
And finally, giba, backbiting, is just rampant. It's spreading rumors in private group chats, or maybe the most destructive form, sharing screenshots of private confidential conversations. Broadcasting what was meant to be secret, not for truth, but for slander and for drama.
So the code of conduct revealed 14 centuries ago is essentially the perfect, necessary ethical guideline for how to manage your digital footprint and protect your digital heart. Technology just makes the ethical perimeter larger, and it requires greater vigilance.
Having established all these ethical rules within the community, the surah then takes this monumental leap in verse 13. It shifts the focus from internal management to a truly global vision. The address changes dramatically.
It's a powerful, universal moment. The Quran stops addressing Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who have believed.
And it switches to
Ya ayyuhannas, O mankind. It's a moment of global inclusion. It's offering a fundamental sociological truth about all of human diversity.
And what are the two fundamental truths declared here about humanity?
First, that all of humanity is created from a single origin, a single male and a single female. This just destroys the basis for any inherited pride of lineage. We all share the same ancestors.
We're all one family.
We're all one family. And second, we are divided into peoples and tribes, Shiban wa Kabaila. But the purpose of this division is critical. It's not for fragmentation or competition or conflict.
The purpose is stated as lida arafu, for mutual learning, interaction, and enrichment.
This completely reframes human diversity. Our differences in culture, language, custom, they are not accidental burdens. They are divinely willed assets intended for our collective understanding. Diversity is meant to enrich our knowledge of the world and of each other. It's a mandate for open, positive intercultural engagement.
And immediately after affirming diversity, the verse demolishes all the false metrics of human worth, race, ethnicity, wealth.
All of them.
By establishing the single, universal criterion for honor. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you, Taqwa.
This is the definitive statement against tribalism, against racism, against classism. Nobility is not inherited. It is earned through internal piety. And the context here is so essential, involving Bilal ibn Rabah,
The former Ethiopian slave, revered for his piety.
And he was chosen to give the call to prayer from the top of the Kaaba after the conquest of Makkah. This was a hugely symbolic moment.
An immediate confrontation with that old aristocratic pride.
A direct confrontation. Some of the Qurayshi men, still rooted in their ideas of lineage, made derogatory remarks about Bilal's dark complexion and his past as a slave. And this verse was revealed to utterly eradicate those deep-seated feelings of superiority based on birthright.
This principle was then immortalized in the Prophet's farewell sermon. I mean, this is something every learner should internalize.
Absolutely. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a black has any superiority over a white, except by piety, taqwa, and good action.
It's the ultimate leveling principle. And as you mentioned earlier, the Prophet would point to his chest and say, Taqwa is here.
It's internal. It's an inaccessible state to others. You are judged by the purity of your heart and the actions that flow from it, not by the external markers of your birth. And this ensures that the door to true nobility is open to every single human being on earth, regardless of their tribe or their station. The global vision is one of equal opportunity for excellence.
The surah then brings us home in the final section, section 6. It turns the focus from external conduct and global vision back to the engine that drives it all, the essence of true faith, or iman. And this is where the surah draws a vital, clarifying distinction in verse 14.
It addresses a specific group, often identified as these opportunistic Bedouins of the Banu Asad tribe. They came forward and they claimed, "We have believed," a claim of fully formed, complete faith.
And the divine correction is immediate and very precise.
Yeah.
You have not yet believed, but say instead, we have submitted, for faith has not yet entered your hearts.
This establishes the critical difference between submission, Islam, and faith, iman.
Explain that difference.
Islam is the outward manifestation. It's the 5 pillars, it's compliance with community law, it's the public declaration, it's entering the legal and political fold of the community. Iman, however, is the sincere, internalized conviction that settles deep in the heart and transforms the person from within.
So if Islam is the external action, Iman is the internal emotional state. It's the difference between, I don't know, it's like I could sign up for a gym membership, that's my submission, but unless I actually go and feel the discipline and see the change, faith hasn't really entered my heart yet.
That's a perfect analogy. The Bedouins were like people who signed the contract. They wanted the worldly benefits of being associated with this new, powerful community. But their rude manners, their lack of patience, their arrogance, the very things corrected throughout the rest of the surah, it all betrayed the absence of that sincere, transformative conviction.
It's a progression.
It's an ascending path, the path famously defined in the Hadith of Gabriel: Islam, compliance, then Iman, certainty, and finally Isinan, excellence.
So after correcting their false claim, the surah provides the positive definition of the truthful believers, al-sadiqun, in verse 15.
Right. And true believers are defined by 3 non-negotiable characteristics. First, sincere belief in Allah and His Messenger, no hedging. Second, absolute certainty. The verse says they have never doubted, lam yartabu. This faith isn't passive or speculative. It is a firm, unwavering conviction of the heart.
And the third characteristic demands proof. It has to manifest externally.
It has to. through striving and sacrifice shahada with their wealth and their lives.
So faith has to be dynamic.
It has to be a living conviction. The certainty in your heart must be constantly connected to and proven by external manifestation, by sacrifice, by proactive effort. If your faith is sincere, it costs you something, whether that's your time, your reputation, your money, or even your life.
And the surah concludes with a final admonition in verses 16 to 18, which goes right back to the arrogance at the root of the Bedouins' claims.
This is the ultimate check on entitlement. The Bedouins genuinely felt they were doing the Prophet a favor by accepting Islam and joining his cause. They expected special treatment in return.
And the Quran just completely reverses that perspective.
Decisively, with this profound reversal. Do not consider your submission a favor to me. Rather, Allah has conferred a favor upon you that he has guided you to the faith.
It takes the focus completely off human achievement and entitlement.
And places it squarely on divine grace. Guidance is an unearned gift. It's a favor, a ni'mah. And true faith cultivates profound gratitude and humility, recognizing that the ability to even want to be good is a gift from God.
So it's a stark contrast.
A very stark contrast. Superficial submission breeds arrogance and entitlement. Sincere faith breeds humility and thankfulness. And it's that humility that ensures all the adab, all the ethics laid out in the rest of the surah are actually maintained.
So if we look back at the entire Surah Al-Hujurat, we can really appreciate its structure.
It's magnificent. It operates like a ring composition. It starts by legislating outward manners, the adab, how you speak to a leader, how you verify news, how you treat your brother. It builds this entire framework for a functional, just society.
But it concludes by circling all the way back inward.
Right back inward. Revealing that all those perfect manners, all that social justice, they aren't just external duties that you impose reluctantly. They are the organic, the inevitable fruit of a sincere, internally transformed faith, of iman and taqwa.
It really is a holistic blueprint. From how to talk with low volume, with patience, with no mockery, to how to think, no suspicion, no seeking out false, to how to act, verify information, reconcile conflict, respect all humanity.
And the integrity of the external behavior is merely a reflection of a purified heart.
I think the foundational lesson has to be that social ethics and personal piety are completely inseparable. If you want a harmonious community, you have to first purify your personal conduct and your private thoughts. The single measure of worth is taqwa, and that is equally accessible to every single person you encounter.
That's the takeaway.
A stunning, comprehensive charter for life. And that brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the learner, to carry forward from this deep dive.
We spent a lot of time on that triad of social poisons in verse 12. Suspicion, spying, and backbiting. So here's the thought. If you were to apply these three ancient prohibitions rigorously to your own daily social media usage, the way you interact with threads, private chats, and profiles, what immediate specific changes would you have to implement to ensure your internal thoughts and your digital actions are protected from these spiritual corrosives?
A deep consideration for our modern moral landscape. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll be back soon with more insights from the sources you need to know.